Nothing on the show is to be construed as legal advice. The contents of this show are for informational purposes only.
Hello, welcome to the Advanced Resolution Management Podcast and YouTube channel. This is a brand new thing that we're going to be doing, and we're really honored and happy to have what I hope to be two regular contributors to this podcast. We've got Justice Nancy Saitta and Judge Jackie Glass on, and what a time it is, ladies, to be kind of launching our podcast.
Yeah, you can say that again, Abbas.
It's an absolute, crazy time. We're going through this worldwide pandemic right now, and first of all, I hope you're all, staying safe and managing to work in a safe environment and doing everything that we're meant to be doing.
Yes.
Are you guys personally doing okay?
Well, thank you for asking. Everybody in my household is good, and we're just trying to stay at home, wash our hands, and not touch our faces.
I can ditto that. Everyone healthy in my house. My home office is getting more use than it ever did before. But you know what? We're marching through it.
Good. Well, I can tell you from personal, personally knowing these ladies that they've been, super duper professionals, and while maintaining social distancing and all the mandates that the governor has given out recently. So, ladies, let's just dive into this, because what we're going to try and do with this podcast is to keep it to a fairly palatable length of time for our viewers and our listeners, so that they're getting the updates in the ADR industry and where you are and where our colleagues are. Obviously, we're going through a really crazy period of time in our history, and I think we'll be looking at this as a crazy time in our history. But looking at it from a bird's eye view from 3,000 feet up, Nancy, how is COVID-19 affecting the ADR industry, in your opinion?
Well, to the extent that it is an absolutely uncharted path, the reality is that we are figuring out how to resolve cases for, number one, health, safety first, case continuity and case resolution second. And so I think the only effect that I felt really in our process or our scheduling has to do with the hesitancy of people not knowing or not being comfortable with this new process. Instead of being in our office with all the amenities that we generally enjoy there, this is a new way to do business. And so I think hesitancy is the first issue that I see mostly with most people.
What about you, Jackie? I mean, this hesitancy that, I have to say, as a litigator myself, I personally have gone through that. But are you seeing any panic, any other experiences apart from the hesitancy that Nancy just mentioned?
No, I will say that people really miss our snacks, Abbas. I have to give them virtual snacks during the mediations. I really do.
They don't work as well, do they?
No. But we save on the calories that way. So I understand the hesitation, but when I explained to two lawyers today, I said, you get a link, you click on the link, you get in the room, your clients can get it also, or you can have your client on the phone, whatever you like. We are as flexible as we possibly can. And basically, think of me walking between the rooms at ARM. I literally click on one room and go in one room, get out, and then come to your room. So when they hear the process, they feel a lot better about it, knowing that we know what we're doing.
I think that's good transition, really. So we had this outbreak, the quarantine mandate came out from the governor, and then how are you ladies as individual neutrals, first of all, dealing with this problem in trying to obviously create a service still for the clients, and how is ARM dealing with it as an institution in order to try and solve that problem?
Well, I can tell you that when we saw this coming, I know that ARM as an institution prepared for it and started teaching all of us, we have this program and this is what we're going to use. And we have our IT person who has been helping all of us that sometimes can be a little challenged. So once we saw how it worked, then we could reassure our clients as to the process and how it's going to work and that it's still effective. So from that perspective, once they do it, they're like, oh, piece of cake. That was so easy. It's not a problem. I'll have to do another one. So I think once they go through it and see how it works, I think they get it and realize that it's just as effective as when we're there. I found it to be just as effective. Nancy, how about you?
Well, frankly, I have found this new manner of mediating or going as between the two rooms, 3 rooms, 4 rooms. In one case, I had 8 rooms that I was going back and forth with to be quite effective. And so in terms of adjusting our practice, it came initially from all the support that we had at ARM with the technology and with our IT guru, who is now my new god, because our IT guy, there for someone like me, it is seamless. So I assure in my pre-mediation calls, I assure everyone that it's going to be efficient, that I'm welcoming them into my home office, but that we are simply maintaining the appropriate health considerations, and we are moving ahead. As I said earlier, we're marching through it. And after probably the first hour of the mediation, when we're getting through the bumps of, I'm leaving your room now, I'll be back to join you, it's rhythmic. People really find it to be almost exactly the same as if we were, at our office minus the snacks.
And the other thing, Abbas, is it seems to be that we can cut through the BS a lot quicker. People understand, hey, I got kids at my house or dogs at my house or cats at my house, equal opportunity to the cat people, of course. But I have other things I need to do in addition to this. So I'm finding that a lot of the usual stuff that goes on in the beginning of the mediation. I mean, I see people cutting to the chase a lot quicker than they would when we were in person.
I think that's right. I have kind of 2 comments about this, one from a litigator's point of view and one from an analytical point of view. But let's go from the analytical point of view, because let me play devil's advocate, Jackie, to what you just said. And Nancy, please chime in, because I'm sure that this is obviously going to be affecting you in your mediations also, which is, I absolutely agree that the positive is people are going to cut to the chase because of, they don't have you in a room and we're in this crazy time. People have got dogs barking in the background, babies crying. And I get that. But do you feel like that the flip side of that coin is that people are not going to go through the process as effectively as if they were there in person? So if you're sitting there and, you have to go through this, the process of mediation, that much slower, that you're going to get to that end result probably like more frequently than if you don't go through the process and just say, this is my bottom line.
No.
Go
ahead, Nancy.
There's much more of an intimacy, if you will, in this process. And again, one of the things that we often spend time with as mediators, especially with the actual parties, particularly the plaintiffs themselves, they walk into an office, they're shuffled into a room, the door is shut, we come and go back and forth. This technology allows us to be, number one, in their home. There's much more comfort with them looking at a screen, because so many people have engaged in, whether it's FaceTime or otherwise, with their family members during this time. And I find that it's almost less intimidating, more right to the point. They know what's going on as between, the 2 rooms or multiple rooms. And I don't see any negativity to we're getting right down to it. We're not going to minimize what we do. We're certainly not, we as neutrals are not going to shortcut our efforts, but we're getting to the core or the meat of the case in a much more expeditious way.
And I think the other thing that really helps is for us ARM neutrals is we all prepare our cases the same way we would prepare even if we were doing it in person. So for example, I had a very emotional mother in a case last week, in a wrongful death case. And I had read her deposition. I knew what I was dealing with. And I was able to, just with my words and not even seeing her, reach out to her in a way that she needed to be reached out to, and make her feel all of the things that she needed to feel. We even had a moment of forgiveness where she told me she forgave the person who caused her son's death. I communicated that to the attorney on the other side. They communicated that to their client. And it was actually quite the moment, even though we're doing it this way. So I think that preparation is key. Knowing who we're dealing with is key. And like Nancy said, people might feel more comfortable doing this from their homes than they are even coming to our office, because they're in their homes. And so I haven't seen anything negative in terms of even the whole process. And when I say they cut to the chase, I'm not saying we immediately go and say, okay, cut to the chase. We're on video. We need to get through it. We still go through rounds and rounds, but I find that a lot of the posturing that we would have encountered before goes away after the first couple of times, when it might have gotten longer.
Well,
I'm sorry, Nancy, you go.
Yeah. I was just going to add to what Jackie said. The moment of forgiveness that you've just described, in these times where almost everything else in our life is uncertain, to be able to proceed with an already scheduled event, and particularly in those instances where we bring the case to closure, I think there's a huge gift here. And that is that this case, or the loss or the injury, is not being put aside. We're dealing with it in the same manner, just through a different mechanism of communication, and we're getting the cases done. And I think that's important. That's that normalcy again.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there are people who are sitting around going, wow, we are hearing over the news that the courts are closed. There's no trials. What's going to happen? I'm injured in a case, but we have the ability to still make it happen, that we can get that case settled for those people who are sitting there going, now what are we going to do? Because there's going to be obvious backlog in the courts once we get through this. We don't even know in our county what's going to happen to all these cases that are now being put on hold, how they're going to be put on the calendar. What is it going to push everything back? Are they just going to get added to judges' calendars? We don't have an idea yet how that's going to be handled. And so for the people who are sitting there going, wow, I'm supposed to be in trial now and I'm not in trial, this is the avenue to get things done.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, so I think, from a litigator's point of view, I have every incentive to keep going to mediation, really, while we're in this turmoil, because from what you're telling me, number one, it works. And number two, it's going to help the backlog of my caseload and the court's caseload, because, there's going to be an issue with the court system, and it's an access to justice problem as well. So I think, it's a win-win for pretty much everybody if everybody continues to, at least entertain and seek alternate dispute resolution outside of the court, outside of the courtroom, because we don't even have access to it anyway. But it's going to help in the long run when this is hopefully done with soon.
Right.
I suspect, frankly, that when things come back on track and we're going through the calendaring of what are we going to do to reset these trials, I believe that a thoughtful chief judge in any of our jurisdictions is going to order these cases into some form of alternative dispute resolution. And the fact that we are already, if you will, desensitizing our lawyers, and they'll say, oh, okay, yeah, if I'm ordered into some form of alternative dispute resolution, I know what I get at ARM, with the neutrals over there. And I'm hoping that, as I said, that a wise and considered decision by a chief judge will be to direct these cases into a different form of resolution.
For sure. Because, the court's going to need it. because of the backlog. Because I think the governor in Nevada, I think today reversed his decision on statute of limitations. So the cases are going to continue to be filed. And so, but there's no litigation going on, so or little litigation.
Right.
So I think there is definitely going to be a backlog, and you've got to have to allow for that pipe because there's going to be a bottleneck for sure. But I think that's a really good point, Nancy. The one point before I go to the technology that I wanted to make in kind of what you both were talking about is I think one of the major advantages that I've seen with the whole remote mediations that have been going on is that I know that at ARM, it's our best practices that all the neutrals, specifically YouTube, I know you both do it, is that you do pre-mediation telephone calls. And I think the attorneys don't take them as seriously necessarily as the neutrals do. And they, it's a 5-minute call, I'll just be done with it, and then we'll deal with it at the mediation. But now, when they know that the entire mediation is going to be done remotely through video conferences and teleconferences, they actually take advantage of that initial call and your follow-ups if it doesn't initially settle, because that's all part and parcel of remote mediation. And I think what happens at the beginning, pre-mediation and post-mediation, if there has to be follow-up, is taken more seriously by the litigators in this scenario. Have you found that too?
100%. 100%.
Me too.
Yeah, I just think that's a really, really interesting, thing that's happened. At least looking at it through the lens of a litigator. I've always taken them seriously, but I know that my colleagues have not always taken them seriously, and the banter that we've been having is kind of been about that. But let's get to the technology here. I personally don't like change, and I know a lot of people are resistant to change. And I'm not good with technology. The producer Zach will only tell you, he probably hates me because I'm on him all the time. Help me set this up. Help me set that up. So there are members of the bar that are going to be resistant to this because people are just resistant to change, and specifically technology, because they're used to doing things the way that they have always done them. So if you broke this down for the layperson that's an absolute technophobe and doesn't know it, how easy actually is it to participate in a remote mediation using video conferencing? And I know at ARM we're using Blue Jeans. So just if you could take me through it and tell me how hard or easy it is.
Well, it's really easy, and I've had various machinations of how it works, because I've had cases last week where I had the litigant on video with me, but his attorney was only on the audio part of it. So we can do audio and video. You're sent a link through an email. You click on the link, you follow the instructions, then you're in the room. And the attorney and the litigant can be in the same room, or the attorney doesn't need his litigant on his plaintiff or adjuster on the call. They can just be on the phone with them and communicate that way. We can do it in many different ways, and it's pretty easy breezy as far as everybody has told me. I have some people that just don't want to be on video because they don't like how they looked because they've been in quarantine, and I have some people who don't care. So we will take them any way they want to participate. We don't care. But it's very simple. It's very simple. There's really, or if you have a computer that doesn't have a camera, or if you just have a phone, or it can all still happen. That's how easy it is.
Well, and
Nancy,
I think perhaps I may be the resident technophobe. I am not going to go into what it took to get me just into this podcast. But the point being, I am extremely technology challenged, and therefore there's a fear. From my perspective, I'm not going to be able to do this, or I'm going to mess it up. I can tell you that just because of timing, I was the first one that used this platform. A very complicated medical malpractice case, a highly compromised plaintiff himself, so he could not join in person. I had, between attorneys and adjusters and the co-defendants and plaintiffs, I believe I had 5 different states within those states, several different locations to be dealing with. And I will tell you that I had techno terrors, thinking that I wasn't going to be able to do it. Literally, it is a click on a link. You are in the room. Then the icon at the top of your screen has a little phone on it, and you click out of the room, you leave the room. Confidentiality has never been a problem for me. Here's an interesting thing. Oftentimes we want to speak to one of the parties, whether it be the adjuster or counsel, outside the presence of their client. This technology allows me to send a text and say, hey, call me. I want to talk to you privately. Don't go into your room. I actually had our IT guru who allowed me, because he was standing right next to me, to set up separate private rooms within the Blue Jeans platform. If someone like me can do that, virtually anyone can accomplish this in 2 clicks. Absolutely, 2 clicks. So,
wow. So the technology allows you to text one person privately and or everybody as a community. Like, did you have both options?
correct. And our technology that we're using at Blue Jeans, I'm told by next week, is going to allow us to have a chat screen on the one side of our larger screen, where if someone instead of having to say it once again in front of the client, hey, Nancy, you need to know this about this situation. It'll come up on the side of my screen, in a text communication. And again, for me to be able to comprehend that, let alone to use it, should be a message to anyone who has any concerns about their technology skills. It is simple and straightforward.
It's essentially what Nancy just described. Like when we're actually at ARM and we want to pull an attorney out of the room, we have that ability to pull an attorney out of the room to have a discussion with them. And it's actually even more confidential than it is when we're doing it physically at ARM. I mean, basically, whether we do it the way Nancy described it, or I'm texting with the attorney at the time, there's less awareness that those private conversations are going on, which they always do go on. So it actually makes that easier.
Yeah, I've always found that takes a certain finesse for the neutral to come in and extract the lawyer with the client remaining and the client going,
right. Well, it makes it easy if you go in and you start your mediation by saying, sometimes there'll be times when I'm going to have to talk to your lawyer without you present. Don't be offended. But this way we can avoid all that and just do it the way we're doing it.
Exactly.
Efficient, very efficient.
So, I think there's different reports depending which outlet you look at and which, whether it's a governor or the president or whoever, or the World, Health Organization, as to how long COVID-19 is going to be, keep us quarantined. And so outside of mediations, do you see remote arbitrations happening? Is that feasible? And is that something that, you would entertain as neutrals?
100%, Abbas. I don't know why we couldn't do an arbitration just like we do the mediations, except that in an arbitration, we'd all be in the same room.
Right.
And we'd swear in the witnesses and we'd let the questioning happen. Everybody could participate. There should be no reason why we couldn't do arbitrations this way.
An arbitration is no more than information gathering that is based on, the regular discovery process that the lawyers go through. Obviously, we will have the information in the exact same way that we get it if we were doing a live in-person arbitration. Yeah. We will conduct the hearing in the exact manner. I see absolutely no reason that this shouldn't be a very effective way to do arbitrations.
Interesting. One thing I personally have always done before in arbitrations is when I have an expert, is I've always asked the arbitrator's permission to be able to bring him in via video conferencing, so I don't have to pay for my expert to fly in from Kansas or wherever they may be. And I think, this actually gives, neutrals a platform to be able to use that more effectively, so that hopefully when this is over, which kind of brings me onto the next topic, by the way, is how do you see this moving forward after COVID-19 is over and done with? Do you see any of the technology and the things that we're learning in this time of adversity helping us enhance ADR in the future and maintaining and keep using some of the stuff that we're doing in this quarantine period?
100%. I think that when we go forward, there'll be companies that decide from an economic standpoint that they don't want to fly someone in personally to participate. And it'll be just as easy to send them a Blue Jeans link and be in the room just like we're now, or we have been doing, and have that person appear by way of video conferencing. And I also think that in the event that we go forward and do live arbitrations again, when experts, instead of having a doctor or an expert come and testify, they can be in their office and testify, or their home and testify. And I think it's going to be just as effective. So I see a lot of this technology carrying over into our future, even after we're out of quarantine.
Actually, I would only add to that I will encourage continued use of this technology. It will assist scheduling. It will assist the economics of getting, again, the information gathering to the person who's going to be making your decision. I will absolutely support, and as I said, encourage the continued use of this technology, not to avoid in-person. I don't want to suggest that in-person ADR is going away, but I believe that the efficiency of this technology will serve our businesses as a lawyer and as neutrals very well in the future, very well.
Very interesting. So before we sign off, do you ladies have any words of wisdom, any words of encouragement, anything you want to pass on to our viewers, or like anything else you want to add?
Keep booking. The cases are, looking at the deadlines, that may be in a suspended state right now. We continue to work with those deadlines. And no one, at first people said, oh, well, this is going to give one side or the other, the advantage of being able to put this off because there's no immediately impending trial date. True. I'm not going to pretend that that's not true. But you know what? We can still move the case to conclusion. We can still use the same technique, skill, tricks that we have used before. So like I said, let's keep marching. Business as usual.
Well, I think that I want everybody to know that at ARM, we appreciate the trust that all our clients place in us to handle their cases. And we work very hard to get good results for everybody. And we will continue to provide our service to them as to help everybody, whether it's plaintiff or defendant, get through this difficult time.
Thank you so much. Well, before we sign off, I just want to thank both of you for making the time to do the podcast and the YouTube thing that we're going to put up for all our clients to take a look at. If any of you, any of the attorneys, want to be on the podcast, have any ideas for the podcast, please get in touch with us. We're going to be trying to do an episode every month moving forward now. In the interim, please stay safe, and we hope to see you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Abbas.
Bye-bye.